During this webinar, we're going to go through the process and the results for determining the winners. And we'll also be going through some of the judges' scoring and feedback that they gave on each of the winners, as well as learning a little bit about the judges and the regions that they're from. So stay tuned. Here's kind of an overview of what we're covering. Mainly, we want to make sure to answer any of the judges' questions on the winners, and to also talk a little bit more about some of the concerns or feedback given about the ones that did win, and maybe just highlight that feedback, and then also get some feedback from the judges about the process itself. And just to let you know that this is being recorded, and the recording is going to be made available to the judges. It will be a public YouTube video, but we're going to make it unlisted, and so it'll just be the link will be sent out to the judges. A little bit about your presenters. I normally don't sound this way. I get a little bit of a cold, but I'm one of the 2 innovation specialists at Counterpart International, and we're working on the Innovation for Change initiative in 6 different parts of the world, in 6 innovation centers. And I'm the one that did a lot of the project management around the Civic Innovation Challenge.
Oh, and hey, I'm Derek. I'm the other innovation specialist, and Cara and I have been working together to run this thing.
A little bit, and then Derek and I worked really closely together on this because he also did the more technical side aspect of this, and so he's been the wizard behind a lot of how we put together the challenge itself, and made it a pretty open source process. Just using different, just kind of experimenting, prototyping the process for the challenge itself. And we can talk to you a little bit about that in this section. The Civic Innovation Challenge is part of our larger project or social innovation that we're implementing with Innovation for Change. And it refers to the Civic Innovation Pipeline, and the challenge itself is, if you go far, if this is a funnel, the farthest stage to the left is the first stage funding. And the idea is that we create this really big capture for different ideas to come in and make it as easy as possible for people within the network. And also people who are in some ways connected to the network or interested in being in the network to submit their ideas for what would be addressing civic space challenges. And that they can also test these ideas with a little bit of seed funding that can go a long way as far as implementing it within a 2-month period. And the idea is that then once some merit shows or some impact from that 2-month implementation, those ideas can actually go into 2nd stage funding and 3rd stage funding, and funding that provides more support for the idea to grow and to scale and to have more impact in more than one region. So when you can see in 4th stage funding, you have funding that supports an idea that has cross-regional impact, and so that's made possible through another entity, which is part of Innovation for Change, and that's Tide Center. So we're prototyping that early stage funding through the Civic Innovation Pipeline. And the focus of the challenge is essentially that, to make it possible to do a trial and error process with new ideas that are addressing civic space challenges within the 7 innovation hubs around the world that we support, and that also support civil society. And when we say civic space, I know a lot of you have heard about this, both from when we first started the Civic Innovation Challenge, and also through contact with us, is when we speak about civic space, we're talking about the pillars of what we consider free and democratic societies. And these get into freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression. And the Civicus Monitor breaks it out really well in their webpage, which is listed there. We won't go into that because we've already spoken quite at length about it with the different participants and the judges. This scoring criteria, the judges know well, it's the criteria that they use. There was 3 main areas. There's an overall score and there's overall feedback. There are 3 main areas. The first area was the purpose of the idea and the like the person who submitted it in the organization, did they understand the whole purpose, like the bigger picture of what the challenge is about, and the like what was the possibility, like the potential of this idea to generate some kind of outcome from the different activities that they were proposing. And ideally, like, we're looking for systems change kind of outcome. And the third part is looking at the operational, like how cost effective was the idea? Could it actually scale? Did the organization have the capacity to implement it? And now we're going to get a little bit into the breakdown of the scores. We had, I know that Derek was able to show us the data in different ways. So what you're going to see is some of the visualizations of the scores, and mainly what we're showing you are the top or the highest scores from the 54 entries that we had. So I'm going to let Derek do these following slides.
Cool, thanks, Cara. So we had a lot of applications come in, more than we expected, more than our APS grant system from 2018. And as a result, that required a lot of scores from a lot of different judges. So with 54 applications from 5 regions in 3 different languages, we ended up getting close to 180 scores received from 25 judges, each of whom spoke English, many of whom spoke a second language, either Spanish or Russian. An average score of 70 was required to be eligible to win. You can see that line going up the middle indicates eligibility at 70 points. So not too many, only a small percentage of applicants actually got above 70 points. And so we were delighted to see that there were some that went far beyond 70. So we ended up having budget to accept the top 7 applications, which amounted to about $70,000. And then on the next slide, I think we have a little bit more detail about the top scoring applicants. The highest scoring application was in Pactia. A number of our proposals ended up being in Russian and Spanish, so we are incredibly grateful to those judges who were able to help us process these languages. And one nice thing that I was very pleased about is that there was a lot of diversity in where these applications came from. So we had 3 separate regions funded: Africa, Central Asia, and LAC.
Okay, and the moment everybody's been waiting for. This is where we do the drum roll. I wish I would have had the music prepared. So here we go. I'm going to go one by one after I give you all of them, 7 of them. And Nash, Fidokor, Child Defenders League. I think we'll break it down, but it's like Central Asia region, LAC, and Africa are the 3 regions that we had high scores from. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go through really quickly what the project is. And then in the next section, we're going to go through some of the feedback for each of these. So for the first one, NASHVEC, this is coming out of Central Asia. The project is focusing on like civil society participation and involvement, and coming up with the monitoring and tracking process to ensure transparency and accountability. So they're, I know that part of their proposal is some kind of platform to do that, as well as bringing, convening both civil society and government. So that's NASHREC. Presentes, Journalism, Gender, and Human Rights. They're coming out of LAC. And the idea with Presentes is to verify data and to create a record and online map of hate crimes from 2019. And to use this data to leave a record of attacks so that different organizations can use the data to combat the violence that from hate speech. And so they're new to the network. Very excited about the proposal. The third one is Child Rights Defenders League, and also coming out of Central Asia. And they're specifically focusing on waste management, recycling, and ecological problems. And so what they're creating is like an MGA, or like they call it an MGA, which is essentially like some kind of platform or process that they're using to track how waste management can be changed. Fidokor is also coming out of Central Asia from Tajikistan, and they're doing something really interesting because Tech Bootcamp was prototyped in Almaty, and so Fidokor, one of the founders of Fidokor, or I believe the co-director, was there, and he took that idea and ran with it and wanted to do a tech boot camp similar to the one that was done in Almaty and do it in Tajikistan, and to make that 2 to 3 day event focus on prototyping ideas, technologies, creative problem solving around challenges that come up for CSOs, and bringing that convening space and experimentation space to CSOs in Tajikistan. Number 5, Senegal. Senegal is a collaboration between Senegal and Time Bank, which is based in the US. It's actually founded by an Ashoka Fellow. The idea is to take something that they've already been doing, a project that they call the SEAL program, which focuses on storytelling, journalism, photography, music, and filmmaking. And it brings a lot of women into the democratic process through this program. And so they're going to be expanding that, including time banking, citizen participation technology into this 2-month period. Citizen Policy Internet Initiative, they're launching a monitoring and compliance system for monitoring. So what they're looking at is violations of the rights to access information. They're out of Central Asia. And last but not least, Impactia also is coming out of Latin America, Caribbean region. They're creating a virtual consultancy or assistant to help organizations come up with project profiles to submit in international calls for cooperation that includes, I believe, funding and other types of support for different projects. So that's the 7 winners. Here's some of the highlights from your feedback on these winning proposals. Derek, do you want to help with some of these?
Sure. So there was NASHVEC, the Public Foundation. Judges said that this was an important topic. Everybody agreed about it. But the questions were whether this proposal, whether the team had sufficient technical support. And so, one of the things that we're going to be doing when we're awarding them is making sure that they've got the technical expertise necessary to do this thing. Most of the feedback around NASHVEC was applauding the subject and underlying the objective is very laudable. One person, however, say, I do not understand this proposal. But that didn't prevent it from getting a high score, so impressive nonetheless.
Okay, here we go. Presentes, lots of excitement around Presentes. Could we actually extend this to different cases and regions? Good idea, except that it's, the question is, how is it going to scale, right? And how is it going to specifically reach these communities? So it does need to have a better articulation of its scaling strategy. Derek, take it away.
Child's Rights Defenders League. The game needs to be popularized around the main target audience. Child's Rights Defenders League wanted to create a video game to raise awareness about an issue. The judges were concerned that 10,000 might not be enough to develop a game, and having worked as a game developer before, I can tell you that 10,000 can go a long way, or it could be very, very minimal. So I agree, costing is something that this team is going to have to be very careful about.
All right, number 4, Fidokor, and they're the ones doing the boot camp. $10,000 is not a lot of money, but it does look like most of the costs are for travel, which makes sense, right? But then how are they going to get the venue? How are they going to get the rest of the money? A lot of questions around that. And then questions around, well, who's coming? How are you gonna make sure that they're learning what they need to learn for their work? And then there was a big you know, support here, feel the proposed outcomes have been properly identified. It's a solid plan. So there you go. No comments on citizen policy and internet initiative. And then 2 more left. Senegal. Derek.
People were very, very positive about Senegal. And I remember watching the scores come in. Senegal remained near the top, and for a while was the #1 highest scoring for a long time. So the concept is great. People say that they should talk a little bit more about their solutions, which of course we're going to dive more into.
Yeah, there's a question too about like the time banking, right? Well, and the question, well, my question is, what is time banking, right? So that's going to be an interesting thing to actually see them use. Interesting concepts. We'll see what happens on the execution. Senegal also had the, it's a little bit misleading to one of the judges because it said the project is highly youth, but it's not really talking about youth. There's a question about how innovative it is, and although the proposal is very well thought through, not sure how it fits or aligns with the goals of the competition. So, Impactio, last one. This one was very interesting because the proposal itself was about 1.5 pages.
Yeah, it was short.
Very to the point. And the tool is very simple, right? Because the idea is to create an open source way to facilitate this resource access, right? And so some of the questions are like, is this going to be available for every LAC member, right? There's also questions about like, do the questions that are going to be asked by this like platform that they're recommending, or this like tool, are they going to really align? Can it be added on to? Is there some kind of logic model for presenting projects? Like, how much can this tool really do, right? So that I sense some skepticism about how a tool so simple could actually help people. So we'll see. About the judges, this was really interesting. So Derek, I'll let you get into this because we were just working up this visualization. We got us very excited to see where everybody was from.
Sure. So, like I said, we had 25 judges and of all different strokes and walks of life, all different regions of the world. Here's a map of where all of our judges were coming from. Many of them were in the US, but many of them were from Central Asia, and thank goodness for them, because we had about 14 different proposals in Tajik to process. We were pleased to see the diversity in locations from our judges and the diversity of experiences. Another big thing was that it ended up being that most of our judges were not actually part of the Innovation for Change network. They were from the private sector, they were technologists or communication specialists. So having an outside the nonprofit zone perspective, we thought was actually pretty valuable. Or, many of our colleagues from Counterpart International also weighed in, which was extremely helpful. And then the rest of our judges came from the LAC Hub, MENA Hub, and South Asia.
Yeah, this is actually really, to me, this was one of those interesting things, right? Because the idea was that from each hub, we would at least have one judge that would be able to judge, from the region. And so this is actually really useful to us to be able to see this, and having a lot of external judges also helped us kind of, I think it was a more rigorous scoring process because a lot of us have heard different ideas circulated that were contributed or submitted to this challenge. So having outside judges, I think made it harder for people because they really had to explain their idea better. So this was really good. We've gotten a lot of different feedback about the process, and so we'd love to get your help in gathering that feedback. And so we've created this survey. We'll be sending an email out with this link. Please take a few minutes. It's a very short survey, and just give us your feedback on what the process was like. We promise you won't be hurting our feelings with whatever feedback you give us, and we won't just be expecting positive things. So whatever information you give us and opinions that you share helps us to make the next iteration of our process better. I know there's some interest in the other regions from Innovation for Change interested in using a similar process, and so we'd love to hear your feedback as well. And with that said, we can open up the question and answer period. Okay, any questions? Okay, well, Derek, any last comments?
Just wanted to express my gratitude to all the judges. We were piloting a new system for getting your scores and getting a whole bunch of documents. Between all the judges, we had something close to 400 documents that needed to get signed and submitted. And you all showed tremendous grace and patience as we worked out a new, somewhat buggy system. So thank you for your time and your willingness to review all these applications and your willingness to endure strange and new technologies. So thank you.
Yeah, resound. I echo your sentiments, Derek. And as a show of our support and gratitude, we're going to be sending out some certificates to each of you in the coming week. So look for that in your email. And if you're interested in future challenges or competitions that we have coming out of Innovation for Change, please let us know. If you're interested in helping to design it with us, we love people who are interested in making with us. So please reach out to us. And thank you, resounding thank you to all of you. It's really made a difference in our work.